Hello friends and colleagues, Shikhova here, and I'm going to present you the presentation Holocaust Commemoration in Moldova, Sites and Politics 1945-2020 and on. So when the Jews after 1944 began to return to Moldova, they found the land soaked with the blood of their relatives and at the same time the absence of a generally recognized place of memory. And of course, these cemeteries became the most evident decision. A cemetery is, first of all, a place of memory. Secondly, the grave is almost the only public space that was under the control of the family, almost without any official intervention. And therefore, almost every Jewish cemetery in Moldova, I've been on maybe all of them with the research purposes. Many tombstones, both pre-war and post-war, have additional memorial plaques with the text like "In memoriam of family members who died in 1941, less often killed by the Nazis, by the fascists, or perished in the ghetto." As an example, the Russian readers, the Russian speakers can read on their own. I will translate for non-Russian speakers. The memorial plaque fixed at the Chișinău Jewish cemetery. So the caption reads, "In memoriam, Rapoport Moise Leib Pinkusevich, son of Pinkus." Date of the birth date doesn't matter so much. The death date is 1920. Rapoport Tsipa Rivka Elyevna died in 1943, and Rapoport Esther Moiseyevna died in 1941 at Auschwitz in Oswiecim. Is written in Russian. It's obvious that Moise Leib died in a peaceful 1920 at the age of 34 for a reason unknown to us. And his name was immortalized after the war, not at the place of his burial, but at the grave of his daughter, because apparently his grave, for some reason, was not preserved or was inaccessible to the family. Maybe it was placed on the part of the Chișinău Jewish cemetery that was demolished after the war in the late 50s, early 60s. Tsipa Rivka died on or perished in 1943. We don't know when, where, maybe in evacuation, maybe in a ghetto or a camp, maybe even Soviet camp, as the deportations of the Jews as well, of Moldovans, Bessarabians, including Jewish families, took place right before, a few days before the war broke down. And the third line, "the place of death of Esther," leaves no room for conjecture. But in Moldova, there is a rare example of how in the first post-war years, on the initiative of the Jews, not the Jewish community, we are not talking about the Jewish community since the community was not an official institution that period. So the place of mass execution and burial of Jews was immortalized. It's so-called Dubasari Babin Yar. A ghetto was created not so far from that place, from the site in Dubasari, in August 1941, where Jews were driven not only from Dubasari and the surrounding area, but also from Chișinău, Tiraspol, Balta, Katovsk, Kananiev, Krasne Okni, etc., etc., etc. In this place, during a few days on September from 12 to 28, 1941, the German Einsatzkommando 12 of Einsatzgruppe D consisting of 20 soldiers and 5 officers under the command of Hauptsturmbannführer Noske and Feldfebel Keller, Volksdeutsch, born in Russia, with the assistance of 11 local collaborators, shot from 6 to 8,000 people. And more than 18,000 bodies are lying in this place as people were killed and added more and more during the war. This place was on the outskirts, behind a tobacco factory, but immediately after the war, new buildings began to appear around, and there was a danger that something would also be built right on the bones. Then the Jews began to appeal to all instances up to Marshal Zhukov, who had been the military commandant of Odessa from June 46 to February 48, and Odessa is not so far from Chișinău and from Dubasari. And perhaps this is a local legend, but even if it's a legend, it's a very typical and telling itself. So it says that Zhukov personally gave the order to organize a memorial at the place of executions. The composition of the memorial was originally typically Soviet. The plaque on this place are peaceful Soviet citizens who were shot by the Nazis during the Great Patriotic War in Russian and Moldovan, and a 3-figure composition added in 1956 in the aesthetics of socialist realism, a Soviet soldier protecting 2 children, a girl and a boy. At the pedestal, there was the inscription to the Soviet soldier, the savior, but the Jews always perceived this inscription as inappropriate. Who of 18,000 people lying here was saved by the Red Army? And after the collapse of the USSR, this inscription was removed, although the rest of the memorial elements remained. Over the years, the voices of the memorial become polyphonic. In the 1990s, the architect Simon Shohet and the sculptor Nathan Applebaum developed an integral project of the memorial, which, due to the eternal lack of money, never was implemented generally. But its eternal incompleteness became symbolic too. The entrance to the memorial is made out by a gate with a menorah. On the walls from the inside appear granite tablets with informational texts in Russian, Hebrew, and Yiddish. At this place in September 1941, the invaders carried out a mass execution of more than 18,000 prisoners of the Dubasara ghetto, and so on. There, one by one, as the names become known, granite tablets are added with the lists of the victims. In 2017, with the money of a private sponsor, a Jew whose relatives also were killed there, opposite the figure of a soldier with the children, another monument was erected after the project by Lazar Dubinovsky, although the original project was supposed to be another sculpture by Nathan Applebaum. Stilistically, this sculpture is solved using the widespread in the post-Soviet period motive of gaping, of emptiness, a woman bowed in sorrow, and from a certain angle, one can see that the figure in the cloak is hollow. It's empty inside. On the pedestal, the words "for what" in Russian, English, and Yiddish. The space is complemented by 6 torches with eternal flame, a symbol of 6 million victims of the Holocaust. The whole history of perpetuating the memory of the tragedy in the monuments of Moldova continues these 2 tendencies. In the Soviet period, either a private initiative in a private space or a state memorial to peaceful Soviet citizens, and in the post-Soviet period, adding of information plates about the Holocaust to Soviet monuments, or raising Holocaust monuments in public space, but not on the state initiative and not for state money. On the Orhei Highway in Chișinău, in the historic district of Visterniceni, which during the war was outside the city limits, approximately at the place where mass executions took place practically from the very first days of the Chișinău ghetto. In the early 1980s, a monument to the victims of fascism by Aurel David was erected, a symbolic image of two hands tearing the barbed wire connecting them. After the collapse of the USSR, the monument turned out to be ownerless. Not a single department was going to take care of it, and it fell into desolation. The metal from the pedestal was stolen. In 2016, the monument was restored with money from the Jewish community and private sponsors. Plaques and an informational panel were added. The area around was ennobled. However, there were some annoying incidents. According to the original reconstruction plan, it was assumed that the alley of the Riders Among the Nations would become part of the memorial. But while the monument itself was under reconstruction, the nearby Mercedes Center expanded, capturing the territory of the proposed alley. And the situation has not yet been resolved. In the post-Soviet era, the situation has changed somewhat. In many cities and villages where there was a significant Jewish population before the war, large memorials or modest commemorative signs perpetuating the memory of the Holocaust appear at the places of executions and mass graves. Each of them is interesting for the story behind it, or design, or location. Here are just a few examples. On the outskirts of the village of Sculian in Ungheni region, the homeland of the Sculian Hasidic dynasty, which became famous in the United States after the war, in the middle of an empty space that can hardly be called a square, just a wasteland, stands a monument to the destroyed Jewish community of the town. It is interesting in that wasteland is the place where the Jewish cemetery was demolished during the Soviet period, and the monument itself is stylistically designed in the form of a memorial of a matzava, of a Jewish gravestone, typical for the Jewish style. At the entrance to the village of Terebna, the next example, Yedinets district, there is a memorial sign with the names and the Star of David on the left and a cross on the right. This is a monument to the victims of the occupation regime during the war, both Jews and Soviet activists. Since 2018, more examples here. Since 2018, on the territory of Moldova, so far only in Chișinău, the Stolpersteine Stumbling Blocks campaign has been launched, privately initiated by the German artist Günther Demnig. And at the same time, I need to mention that there is still not a single monument to the victims of the Holocaust on the territory of the Republic of Moldova, erected at the initiative of the state. Apparently, everything is still ahead. Thank you, colleagues, for your attention. You can read more. I will place the whole text of the article to my site magid.org. That's the site of the NGO I'm a founding director. And see you soon on the meetings discussing the presentations